the internet didn't exist when we first used to get BNRs. We would get them through Duelist magazine, right? Times would change, and then they became articles. Well, why can't times change again and they become videos? Having a video every time a BNR comes out would be it would just make my day. I think it would make everybody's day as far as the each perspective format is concerned, and I think we deserve that.
EternalDurdles.com is the home for Magic the Gathering written content. If you want to write an article for EternalDurdles.com, reach out to @ForceOfPhil on all social media or Discord. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/EternalDurdles. As part of your membership, you'll get access to an additional 15-minute audio episode every week and ad-free listening on all episodes. That's patreon.com/EternalDurdles. What it do?
So, Phil, I woke up in kind of a huff last night just thinking about how good the EDH players eat in with their ban and unban announcements and their format shakeups and all this stuff. When I realized that, I also realized how good the Pauper players eat when they get this information, because there's someone at Wizards of the Coast, specifically Gavin Verhey, that not only plays but loves those formats enough to create a 30 to 40 minute explainer video talking about every single, like, just hand holding people through every single just nuance of a decision that was made along the way. And it made me jealous. It made me wish that there was somebody at Wizards that cared as much about specifically talking about Pauper, that cared as much about Legacy, a eternal format, that Gavin cares about Pauper. Just Pauper. It doesn't even have to be the level of care that EDH gets. Because that EDH video came out yesterday for them, and I suggest anybody watching this video go check that out and just look at how much information was given. They just go into such depth and detail that I just wish that somebody at WotC cared as much about Legacy as Gavin does about Pauper or about EDH. And I understand that those things are, maybe not Pauper, but EDH makes so much more money than Legacy does, and they can afford to have a guy who just sits there and says, "Hey, I have a day I need to put out a video. I guess I'll do an hour-long video about what we just did in EDH." But it would be amazing if they just did a quarter of that for Legacy every time there's a BNR.
Does Legacy lose its charm if WotC starts to care about it?
Yeah, I guess we don't get to gnash our teeth and beat our chests as much if WotC starts paying attention. But no, honestly, I just thought about it, and the first thing that came to my mind, Phil, was I want to write an article about what this would look like, right? I want to write an article, and I was like, well, if I write an article, then I should do the video. I should do the video that looks like what Gavin just did for EDH, but I want to do it for like the last ban announcement, right? And then I was like, that's a waste of time. I do want to do it for the next one, right? The next time there's a BNR video, along with our rant about how we felt about it, along with the community episode, I want to do a like POV, like, whoever writes it this coming up time, right? As though I'm that person going through the BNR announcement, and then just for the most part, like, it will be factual. But then I just want to do like these fictional moments where they're like, we spent a lot of time thinking about whether or not we were going to unban Coalition Victory. Like that sort of thing, to me, more than just a sentence on a page, right? When you can hear the voice of somebody that was in the room talking about how much care they've given to a format, it really changes how you perceive the decision that was made, right? I remember when I was watching this video and I was sending you screenshots of stuff, and all you got, I presume, Phil, you haven't watched the video.
No, I watched it.
Oh, you did watch it? Okay.
Oh, I watched it.
So I presumed that the only way you were getting it up until that point, at the very least, was through me sharing visuals of what was happening. And even that felt like just so much more care than what goes into a BNR. And I get that there's like the BNR needs to be written for sure. Like, right, you have to have the article, right? But why can't we also have a video on that level? And every format, like Modern should get one, Standard should get one. Every single one of those people, that should be their task for that week, is like, you're gonna not only are you guys going to deliberate on what you need to do, but you each need to present a video. Like, times have changed, you know? The internet didn't exist when we first used to get BNRs. We would get them through Duelist magazine, right? Times would change, and then they became articles. Well, why can't times change again and they become videos for each format on top of the written stuff? The written stuff is important, right? I think you need something concrete, but having a video every time a BNR comes out from each of those authors would be it would just make my day. I think it would make everybody's day as far as the each perspective format is concerned, and I think we deserve that.
I think it's interesting that your takeaway on after watching that video is advancing and updating the medium by which they translate that information to us. The thing that jumped out to me in how they talked about it, particularly how Gavin talked about each card, if those who haven't watched the video yet, for all the cards that they banned or unbanned in the discussion, they also went through every card that's on the ban list and explained why it's still there and whether or not they would ever consider it to come off. And if they wouldn't, why they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And if they did, why they would.
Now,
and I thought that.
Well, I think Phil, I want to pinpoint that they only have to do that one time. So that was a huge lift that they now never have to do again.
I think no. I disagree. I think you do.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
I think you do that because you have to update with where the world is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
like
it also puts an onus on them to not make design mistakes, right? Because going through that entire list every time, a bit of a pain in the butt, right?
I think it's okay to rehash like where as the game evolves and like understanding what matters and what doesn't. Like because a card being banned in the context in which it was banned at the time. If the world or the format has evolved as such that interaction is not nearly as powerful or as backbreaking as it once was, whether because there's new tools, whether the speed of the format has changed, whether the context of the given format has changed or evolved over time, like those things change. Nothing is set in stone with a game that is constantly getting new pieces added into it at the volume that Magic does. So I think that the going back and listing like, here's why this card was banned for this reason. And we think that is still not an interesting or compelling play pattern that we would like to support. Therefore, like you bring up the coalition victory thing. They were like, yeah, coalition victory was banned at the time. And, it still propagates the idea that, any 5-color commander can just play this thing. And if you just have your 5-color commander out, this just reads win the game on it. But the means that you can interact with that plus the mana investment means that we think that the players that will commit to this type of thing, and if players know that that's around, then they'll be able to hold up interaction for it because it's such a steep mana investment on top of a 5-color commander that we think that like the players who will enjoy this will get to enjoy this, and it won't be, super blistering and oppressive. And when it hits, it'll be a big splashy moment. And when it doesn't hit, it'll be like, gotcha, but you still had the chance and the opportunity and the tension to try and do it. And that seems exciting enough for us to give it a go. And the thing that they clarified afterwards was these are all like, if they find that this is not interesting or fun or people actually don't like this, they'll reban it. He straight up said, like, we're unbanning it and we will reban it if we have problems.
3-for-1 Trading is having a spring sale from Wednesday, May 7th until Monday, May 12th. Their high-end Magic singles, sealed products, and gaming supplies are 5% off, and they offer free worldwide shipping on all orders over €500 or dollars.
Use code SPRINGSALE25 for a 5% discount and free worldwide shipping on all orders over $500 or €500 from their online store. Shop.3for1trading.com. Their promotion starts on Wednesday, May 7th at 6 p.m. Central Eastern Time and ends on Monday, May 12th, 11:59 p.m. Central Eastern Time. Huge thanks to 3for1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
That was actually the genius of that system, is that they said everything that we're unbanning here is going to be considered a game changer. So the nature of the game changer system, for those that you don't know, is that the first 2 brackets, you can't even have any game changers, I think. Or maybe you can have like one on the second one, I forget. But basically they're like, these cards are still soft banned for super casual matches. And then for like medium casual, you could only use 3 game changers. So like the genius of that is that even if they make that unban, it's still a soft band in the lower tiers anyhow of Commander, which is a whole like, look, I don't expect them to do anything like that for Legacy.
No,
but it is somewhat genius that they can do this, because it makes it so much less likely that any of these cards they unban will be back on that list anytime soon, because at the higher power levels, no one playing CDH is going to be like, fuck, man, Coalition Victory is ruining the game for us,
I think that's the part that is a little bit more nuanced when it comes to like these bans, the way that they spoke about all the cards as to why they would or wouldn't, why they unban them or why they wouldn't unban certain cards, was underneath each decision that they made was the intent to curate a particular kind of experience.
Yes, thank
for
you.
a kind of player that would really enjoy that experience. But they still waited. What would this look like for the players that won't like this experience? Like when they talked about unbanning Sway the Stars, they're like, this is a huge thing that's sort of aligned with other cards that are similar to it that, sort of reset the game. And some players don't like that. But this is so huge and so splashy. Like, will it show up at the competitive stuff? Unlikely. Is this the type of thing that like will, upset some people? Like, anytime a cyclonic rift happens or whatever, like, sure. But like, is that a minimal enough number of games where it happens that it's not worth letting those players have the toy that really, really excites them, even if they never actually get to accomplish the thing? And I think that that's such a good, interesting way to at least experiment with letting stuff out of the cage. And I think the way that translates over to Legacy and why it feels like, oh, this format, EDH and Pauper are getting, like, these formats are getting really taken care of. I think the difference when we look back at the previous announcement for Legacy is, even though Carmen Handy, who presumably led this ban announcement because, wrote the article and was in the video, the Magic Online, the video where they talk about
the daily MTG,
the daily MTG. Video, is that even though somebody might play Legacy, there's a difference between like playing Legacy every once in a while or like sort of keeping up with deck lists and actually playing like continuously, like you are actually entrenched in the format in the way that the players that, or the Pauper panel seems to be, or the way that, Gavin talking about EDH seems to be. And I think that was the thing that's missing is like when they're talking about, yes, we want to, like, we think that Oops All Spells existing is a cool thing and we want to be able to support that type of thing. And it's like, okay, when we talk about like that sort of thing compared to like Sway the Stars or Coalition Victory, when they calibrated for Coalition Victory, they're like, here's the situation where we think that this would be not good. What are the ways to counter that type of thing? Is there enough window for people to counter it? And he was like, yeah, any single piece of removal on a 5-color commander for the situation that we care about disrupts that. And that is not a big ask from any of the three other players at the table. For Legacy,
play more removal, as they say.
And the Oops All Spells thing is just an easy example. I'm not coming for Oops
for sure,
even though I think like Oops shouldn't exist. Like I'm not coming for that like specifically right now.
They could have addressed people like you that don't like Oops All Spells.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, so is Oops All Spells winning at this clip enough of a disruption to the players that really dislike not having any agency over the game that we make? Enough to like prop up the players that do like this type of thing? And it's like, it's not like there aren't other glass cannon combo decks. It just happens to be that a glass cannon combo deck winning at a particular clip or being consistent enough of a turn one kill through disruption at a particular clip becomes so much that they're like, we need to take action against something. I think that's the part that's missing. Not to get too into the weeds. I think the part that's missing about, like, it feels as though when they're talking about the ban announcement, like, and we were talking about the language of the ban announcement in the article and how it was written, it just doesn't feel like they are having the actual experience from their POV. It sort of feels like they're sort of just taking in what we as the community have said, sort of regurgitated it in a way that they can present it and then make the changes, but then don't make the changes in a way that actually solve problems. They just sort of band-aid the problems with certain things and then hope that it works. And then if it does work, then great. And if it doesn't work, then they're like, okay, we'll just address it next time and people will just be upset until then. And I think that it's the level of care.
This is where I want to interrupt you because this is where you're going. Magic is a game that we spend time and money on. Both of those things are expensive, right? Over the years, you talked about me talking about how, like, updating the way that they convey this information. Over the years, the stewardship has not been upgraded, right? I want white glove service when it comes to a game that I spend like half of my freaking allowance on. We should get a level of stewardship that is commensurate to the amount of time and money that we spend on this game. So when you look at what people spend on EDH, I get that it's more than Legacy at the end of the day. But if you look at all of the competitive Magic versus all of the casual Magic, right? Those are probably somewhat commensurate, right? Why can't we upgrade the stewardship for each of those ban announcements in that case? And I don't care if it is commensurate to the amount of money that is spent on those formats or the amount of money that Wizards pays, right? Or we can at least convey this information to people in the space that like to make videos. Like, I am going to love to make a video for the next one and come up with this thing, even if none of it is real, and just be like, this is what we could have, Wizards. This is the experience that players are craving and would love to see. I'm going to do my best to do what you just asked, where we go through every single card, and as like a quote unquote designer, I give what in my mind would be the reason why these stayed or didn't stay, because they're not going to obviously write down every single card, right? Like, but for the BNR, the actual BNR, just having the visuals there, hearing someone's voice say those things, I think makes a big difference. And Phil, the crazy thing is when we put out our reaction video, you know what our biggest shorts are? Because I use like that AI feature in Riverside to create our shorts. So it just picks what's the most interesting, and then we make the shorts. You know what our biggest short was from that time?
Pray tell.
It was me just reading the ban announcement. It wasn't me a take or anything. It was just me reading the ban announcement. For like a minute and a half, I read the ban announcement, and that got like over 4,000 views. It wasn't anything interesting. It was just people being like, oh, the news. Cool. You know? And that proves that that's all people want sometimes. But they want it read to them. They want it curated. They want white glove service. And I think that Wizards owes that to us to just upgrade the stewardship a little bit. Is that what you were getting at?
Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is the best deck building website on the internet. You can find all of my and Phil's decks in links below, including decks from this episode. And if you do, you'll be directly supporting the channel.
Yeah, it's a combination of that and then actually allowing whoever is going to provide that kind of white glove service to actually be equipped to do that in a way that is effective.
Yeah,
because
obviously Gavin has a little bit more carte blanche than, say, your average person who writes for Legacy, right?
I think like one thing that I thought was really compelling was the way that Gavin presented it is he like let us into the room to the extent that like we understand what their intent was for everything in a way that we could understand like as positive, right? Like even if you don't like it, like the for Legacy where they were like, we think Reanimator is part of the format, we want to be able to support people being able to play Reanimator strategies. There's a difference between that as a strategy and then actually picking apart like, here are the aspects of what that strategy is and why we want to support it and what the tools that would get in the way of that would be. So like I found like the spot where you talked about coalition victory, the particular instances why they didn't like it and why it was on the ban list to begin with, the reason why they're unbanning it because of the world that we're in now, the players that they're looking to target with that unban, the joy that they're looking to elicit by letting that back out into the wild, while also still saying, hey, people who fear this, we got you. Like, we aren't letting this fully off the leash. We're just letting it out of the cage. And we will, let us know your feedback on, like, whether or not it's over the line or not. And we'll address again. And if it's totally fine, then we'll let it go. And if not, then we'll put it back in the cage. Like, that's still there. The other one was talking about the bans with not broadside. What's the goblin that makes all the treasures?
The dockside extortion. I knew you were going for this. Dockside extortionist. What is it? Jewel Lotus and Mana Crypt. I was waiting for you to get to this point. Great.
Yeah. So they talked about those three cards because those were banned before WotC took over handling the.
So they paid homage to what had just happened, right?
Yeah. So they addressed what the bans that happened that elicited such a massive tragic response that compelled WotC to take it over anyway because they were worried about the safety of the EDH panel or whatever that was doing that work for them. When they went to it, they went back to it like, hey, these cards are not coming off this time around. Like, we don't foresee them coming off. But then he said, but the card that is likeliest to is this one. Now, in that was regards to Jeweled Lotus. And then they said, why? They were like, we're not doing anything now. We don't think we will. But the one that got the most traction, and that was a really interesting way to put it. He said the card that has the most traction is Jeweled Lotus. Now, the reason that I like the way that he worded it, letting us in, he didn't have to say, hey, we're the one that maybe is Jeweled Lotus. They're not coming off. We think it's too powerful. We respect the decision of the bans before we took over. But the one that could come off is Jeweled Lotus. It's the one that had the most traction in the room for potentially letting go and trying it. And I think the reason why that is such a really good way to articulate that to us is we hear that their reservations as to why they wouldn't want to let something go and back out into the field of play. We now understand what the threat of this card is and why they are concerned about it. But then they said all of the reasons why they would let it go, which is a big point because it lets us know that if that thing is desirable enough and they like it enough, then they would consider it to actually do it, to actually let something off, And then the last part of it is by saying it's the one that had the most traction, it was setting the guardrails for where people should focus, giving their feedback. Hey, we're not we're not looking at Dockside or Extortionist or Mana Crypt to come off. That's unlikely to happen. If you tell us about it, we're not really in the space. There really isn't any traction for that, so you'll probably just slip and fall by the wayside if you give us feedback on that. But the one that does have traction is Jeweled Lotus. So if you give us feedback on that, and we get enough feedback from enough different sources that really want this thing back in as a try, maybe we'll give it a go. And I think like if they did that with the legacy ban list, where they were like, "Hey guys, like we like this past one, like everybody thought Deathrite Shaman was gonna like maybe get out of the cage. Like if they did this sort of thing with all the cards on the ban list, it's like, hey guys, we aren't gonna let these cards out because Days Wasteland exists, and that was way too powerful on the play, and it's like there's just no traction on these cards. Like, don't give us feedback on this. We're not considering them. But if they were like, hey guys, like we're sort of in the space to look at, like, red needs a little bit of a boost, perhaps. Like, we're looking at, like, there's stock up and up the beanstalk. Like, we're maybe looking at expressive iteration to come back off. Like, we're not saying that it will. We don't think that it's necessarily a smart play for us to do, but it had some traction in the room with the people that were talking about it. So give us your feedback on that if that's something that you'd like to see back. And then we can focus on the cards that actually could make something happen.
Well,
Rather
the
than
fundamental
us, like, amorphously being like, oh yeah, let's let Astrolabe off. We should not let Astrolabe off, guys. It was soft banned actual basics.
Well, the fundamental difference here is, so Phil, let me paint a movie picture for you. Are you a fan of Michael Rappaport? Do you know who that is?
Did he actually just die? I saw that he just died. Is that true?
I hope not. I love that guy. Have you ever seen the movie Beautiful Girls? Came out in like 19 maybe new or something.
Nah.
Anyhow, Michael Rappaport plays like the like, they literally say the shithead townie friend, right? He is the weirdo. Like he has opinions about women and stuff, and it's a whole thing. But there's this great moment in the movie where he's trying to give advice to like the main character, and he's like, "You never let him behind the curtain, man. You never let him see the gears and levers that work the great and powerful Oz." And then somebody like, I think Rosie O'Donnell is the character that goes like, "Are you an idiot?" And that is the paradigm shift I think that's happening here with Wizards, is that they are starting to realize that it's kind of okay to let us behind the curtain a little bit. Let us see what's happening. Let us see the gears and levers that work the great and powerful Oz, Like, I think that's a spot.
That idea of like letting us a little bit behind the curtain, I think that for some reason made me think like what I had said before about how I didn't like the language that they used. And then, many in the community really enjoyed the language that was used in the last Legacy BNR. I didn't like the last language because I thought that it was so amorphous and unspecific. And other people thought it was more specific than we had ever
It had been more specific. You got to give them that. It had been more specific.
Here's an example of like why I think that
perfect specificity.
Here's the example, like the correlation to what they just did with the EDH announcement as to like where they got specific with that versus what we got for Legacy. They were like, we're letting Coalition Victory off because we think that the scenario we're worried about, which is specifically 5-color commanders getting to play their commander, and then this card just says win the game on it. When it's like, in response though, players can just play a 1-mana removal spell to get rid of a creature, and that's good enough to like blow up this potential thing that we're concerned about. They gave us they were like, here's the card, here's the very specific thing we're actually worried about, and here are the tools that we expect to
Here's
make
how you
that
can
not
deal
a
with
problem.
It. Have you played the spell counterspell before?
Now, if that sort of thing doesn't hold true, if the thing that we expect to solve the problem doesn't hold true, then we will come back and address.
Yeah,
it's similar to that way, like them letting Mox Opal off the ban list for Modern, and then being like, "Yep, Wrath of the Skies didn't exist in Modern, Meltdown didn't exist in Modern. There's so many more tools since Mox Opal was banned that we can let it off and see where it goes." Of course, it busted Breach, and then they banned Breach, and now we're in a timeline where we're saying, "Is Mox Opal still too good?" But like, they're giving it the try. Right? They're like, they're still, they let it out. They're giving it a try. And they're like, if they have to ban it again, they'll ban it again. But like for Coalition Victory, they were like, here's the card. Here's the problem. Here's what we expect the answers to the problem to be. If that doesn't work, we'll come back around. Now, when they come back around, when they banned Troll out of Reanimator this last announcement, they were like, yeah, we just don't think Reanimator should also be this, combo-y tempo-y style thing and be able to move around the combo-y, tempo-y stuff. Like, you can't be the combo-y, tempo-y. You can't do the like, come on. Like, the equivalent to that for Troll would have been, we don't think that it's appropriate to have an uncounterable entomb on an effectively unblockable creature in a Days Wasteland shell that can set it up on through turn 1 and obliterate an opponent before they actually get to get off the ground. Like, I understand that, like, maybe they're implying that, but they're not actually saying that.
Yeah.
Which means that I don't know if they actually understand.
Do they get it?
Reason.
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
Yes, you're banning Troll, but like, are you banning Troll for like the correct reason, or are you just thinking that it's like, this is what feedback has gotten, and we don't want to touch Reanimate because we want to protect this archetype that has sort of been around for however long and has been grandfathered in, so we don't want to touch it. Like, are you actually making the educated decision with an awareness of why you're doing it, or are you just doing it because you're trying to protect this insular thing for whatever reason, and you're getting feedback that maybe that's a reasonable target to go after? Now, we don't know. I don't know. It sure would be great to have an equivalent thing of what they're doing for fucking Coalition Victory.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, we are getting rid of this card because of this specific play pattern that we think is over the line. And we think that the tools to combat that play pattern aren't present. Here are the things that we would think would solve the problem. It has clearly not solved the problem, so we're getting rid of it. Like, that is so much more like in tune with how you should make a decision, because it goes, hey, here's what we're thinking as to why this card's a problem. We think that this play pattern is the issue. You guys have these tools available to you that are competitively viable, easily available across enough different archetypes that could combat this strategy so that it doesn't become the oppressive force that we think is worth a ban.
Yeah.
But those tools have not proven out, and so we're going to take action. Like, that is so much more targeted.
Hey, Legacy fans, since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Turtles on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreons get an ad-free RSS feed, 4 bonus episodes a month, and Discord recognition. Join the Dirtle Maniacs at patreon.com/EternalDirtles.
Now back to the show.
I mean, Phil, I think at the end of the day, the ultimate thesis here is that what Gavin did for EDH and what he does for Pauper. I haven't looked at a Pauper video in forever, but he does go in depth when there's bans and unbans, right? Pauper gets a video, whereas Legacy gets a paragraph, right? So they need to choose somebody at WotC that has that same level of passion that Gavin has for Pauper and for EDH, and say like, hey, look, you have the floor. Please make a video when this comes up so that we can share this with the world, and use this inspiration of these videos as a guide for how you want to talk to players. I think that's the ultimate thesis here.
Yeah, I think the other thing, in addition to that I would like for Legacy, because they've done it with, as it pertains to other formats, that they do curate in this way, is when they say that there are certain experiences or players that, or certain experiences or archetypes that they believe players really enjoy, that I would like them to say, we value players getting to have the experience of this archetype that they have enjoyed for this long, or whatever it may be, versus the players that enjoy the play patterns of the card we're getting rid of. So, like, the players that, like, is Psychic Frog over the line? Sure. A lot of people thought so. If that's the case, are the players that, like, really enjoyed playing with Psychic Frog and, like, the experience of playing with Psychic Frog in all of the different things that it, like, the Psychic Frog, like, Max Dorshin, who was on a recent episode, he got to the finals of a Legacy Cup playing a Stoneforge Mystic Psychic Frog Esper deck, right? That wasn't a Reanimator deck, but, like, is the players that want to play the Stoneforge mid-range decks with, like, that card, is the experience of them getting to play with Psychic Frog less valuable than the Reanimator players getting to play Reanimator?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, agreed.
Maybe, like I don't know.
I think also
I'm not suggesting one way or the other, but, like, if they could say, hey, we value supporting this archetype more so than the experience that players got with this card that pushed it over the line. Or all of these cards that pushed it over the line. Like, we think Days Wasteland as an experience is loved by enough players that we want to be able to support that experience, even if it means all of these other cards have to go.
Well, also, Phil, you're talking a lot about, like, what players like and what players don't like. That's not the only metric they use specifically for Legacy, right? Whereas I'm
saying that's what they did for EDH just now.
I do. That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm going with this. It's like they can have a vibes conversation a lot without people losing their minds about EDH, right? But like a vibes conversation about modern or about standard or about legacy is a little less to me.
I sort of disagree on the they can do the vibe check. When they banned Dockside Extortionist, Mana Crypt, and Jeweled Lotus because they were incredible explosive mana like boosts out of nowhere, people got death threats, and it changed the entire calibration of how the format's curated entirely. Like, I don't think they can have a vibes check in that.
Well, look, that's a whole other situation.
It's similar.
It is similar, but it's different in that was finance based. Like those issues are finance based. Like the reasons why those things are happening. And certainly there are people that love playing with those, but there are people that were just, I'm not defending any of those people at the end of the day. And the vibes that's a whole different thing. But what I'm saying is what players enjoy and what players don't enjoy. And that's less of a conversation that I expect to have for Legacy. And it's fine that they throw that stuff in, but really what I think we want is hard data, right?
I disagree. I think that, like, at the end of the day, if the game isn't fun, then that is, you can't, like, that is the baseline first and foremost. I would think if your game's not fun, then it doesn't matter what the win percentage of a thing is. Plenty of cards have been banned without actually having the win percentage to support its ban. Like, Sowing Mycospawn didn't have the win percentage to calibrate its ban, but it still went because everybody thought it was fucking rancid.
Yeah,
like,
no,
that's totally reasonable.
Player experience is important for sure. I do agree with you there.
I'm saying that, like,
I just don't know that it needs to be like they can't. So if you were an employee of Wizards of the Coast that was going to make that video, here's the point I want to make here. If you were an employee of Wizards of the Coast that was going to make that video and you were just going to mirror the way Gavin talked about everything, you'd be spending way too much time talking about how players feel and not enough time talking about how the format should actually feel.
No.
That's
Hold on. Okay. So let me clarify then. The thing that Gavin did that he's done with Pauper and what he just did with the EDH video is he did what old Aaron Forsyth ban articles used to be.
Yes.
Where he didn't just say, like, here's the perceived problem and here's what now we're gonna take action. He was like, here's the thing that we're doing, and then he looked at the players that he thought were gonna be upset about it. So Gavin was like, we're getting rid of these cards, and I know that, like, so-and-so type player may be upset about it, but here's why we're doing it. We hope that you can understand that, like, this thing that you really enjoy is causing this kind of problem for this aggregate of players, and we think that is over the line for X, Y, and Z. Like, they went to the players that they were like, some players are going to dislike this, feel bad about it, and then feel disrespected because they're not acknowledged for their experience being stripped from them. And the way that Gavin was like, we're putting these new cards on the Game Changers list because these types of players were like, blah, 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 blah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like talking to the players that they feel this would negatively affect. So, like, hey, all of you guys that were brewing with the troll reanimate thing, like, outside of the tempo shell, like, all you mono black players that
people
were
who just want to
good
play Sowing Mycospawn so that they can, like, have a toolbox package in their deck, sure.
Whatever, like, the minority of the thing that was getting, their card crushed, right? Like, they were going, hey, you know a really good example of this? Because, I always got to bring back my my good buddy Sensei Top. When they banned Sensei's Top, right? Like, the article of the ban of Sensei's Top, the way that article or that ban announcement should also, like, specifically include is, hey, Painter players.
Yeah.
We're sorry that you're catching the flack on this.
Yeah.
It's like, we know that, like, the reason that we're banning it isn't the reason that you were using it, so this is going to feel as though it's really a backhand in the face to you. Because you aren't the reason that we are going after this card.
Yeah, and just acknowledging that, I think is worth it.
And how much more inside WotC's decision-making process do we get if they acknowledge the players that they weren't trying to tag with it, or the archetype that they weren't trying to tag with it? Hey, guys, you are doing... If everybody did with the card the thing that you're doing with the card, maybe we wouldn't go after it.
Yeah,
but because a good chunk of players are doing the thing that we feel is over the line, we have to take action. We're sorry that causes backfire on you as well. But we see you, and we're sorry about that. But we have to prioritize this and take action. Like, I think that, because not only do they consider their players' reactions to something, but then it also gives us the insight as to, like, we thought this was over the line with the card, but not this was over the line with the card. But we feel that is enough of a weight for us to take action. That is so much more caring for a format that people are really invested in. You know what I mean?
Well,
Does that make you don't does that make sense?
it does
as a
make
vibe check?
sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense. So I would say we didn't stick the landing here, but at the end of the day, it would just be nice to have something on this level of quality for legacy players. And I hope somebody at WotC gets a look at this and gets a chance to see that like this is something of so much value to not just legacy, like to vintage, to modern, and to standard players as well. Like give us the same level of quality that Pauper gets, and we would be so grateful. With that said, what do you think? So comment below and tell me what card you would have liked explained better to you when they banned it in Legacy, because I think that would be a very fun conversation to have as well. Thank you all for watching. Go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles, and we will see you on the next one. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. It grows the legacy content ecosystem we all love by relaying to the platform that you are part of our passionate community.
And to go even further, click the links for subscription or to support directly via Patreon to help us create more content for you. Patreon supporters get 4 exclusive extra episodes per month. If you're listening on an audio platform, head over to patreon.com/eternaldurdles.
Thanks so much for your support.
We'll see you in the next one.